And thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, the podcast where we cover cybersecurity news. In this week, we're going to be talking about the fast fashion brand Forever 21 and a data breach that they were recently involved in that involved the personally identifiable information on 500,000 employees and former employees. So, what happened? The clothing brand recently sent a data breach notification to the Office of the Maine Attorney General, stating that over 500,000 people were impacted, over 1,000 being in the state of Maine. That figure is really only important because if over 1,000 residents of Maine are impacted in a data breach, consumer reporting agencies must be notified of the breach. Anyways, we're not yet sure how the data breaches originally happened, but we do know when they did, and there were two separate instances in January and March of this year, 2023. That was when it was first noticed that unauthorized third parties had accessed Forever 21 systems at various times. However, this fact itself was not discovered until August 4th, 2023, and after investigating to determine the scope of the incident, notice was sent out to employees and former employees, and identity protection services offered on August 30th, 2023. So, what exactly was accessed by the so far unnamed and unknown unauthorized third parties? It seems that data was exfiltrated by the attackers that included names, dates of birth, social security numbers, bank account numbers, and information relating to Forever 21's health insurance plans. This type of information, especially name, date of birth, and social security number combined, can be used to steal someone's identity, which is why identity protection services were offered for a year. Although if that information does begin to circulate, a year might not be enough time. After all, the data can always be used later. Your date of birth and social security number aren't going to change, and you might change your name, but not everyone does, and if they do, it's typically only once or twice in their lifetime. And having the social security number and date of birth will make it so that previously gone-by names will also work for cases of fraud. Forever 21 commented that the incident was limited only to current and former employees, not any customers. Based on the type of data that was affected, especially the health insurance plan information, I do believe that is true. Forever 21 also said they had no evidence to suggest the stolen information had been used for fraud, and they said they ensured the hackers erased the stolen data. This, I do not believe is necessarily true, although it suggests some interesting things. What first comes to mind is a case of ransomware. Ransomware is a malware that encrypts data on systems with a key created by the attacker so that you can't access it. Ransomware attacks also often involve stealing or exfiltration of data, so that if the company doesn't want to pay a ransom to free their data, it may be more enticing to pay that ransom if there's a threat to leak it to the public. Ransomware can be highly disruptive and can cause outages, but that's not always the case. It would also make sense that Forever 21 would make these claims if they were negotiating with a ransomware threat actor. Although they have not confirmed or denied paying a ransom as of the date of this recording, and we are still unsure what group is behind the attack at all. However, I'm unsure how Forever 21 knows for a fact that this data was deleted. How can you prove they deleted all copies and aren't hiding any somewhere or haven't already shared the data without your knowledge? Just because nothing has come up doesn't mean the data will never be used for a fraud. A lot of attacks involving PII, or personally identifiable information, may hold off on using it for some time to evade identity fraud protections provided by the breached party, which typically only last a year, which is also exactly what happened in this case. It is still recommended to take advantage of the protection Forever 21 is offering if you were impacted by this data breach, but you should also closely monitor your credit card activity for fraud, consider continuing the credit monitoring services after your complimentary year is up. It's certainly not impossible that the threat actors want to seem somewhat trustworthy so that they get ransom payments in the future, and may have actually kept their word and deleted the data, but that's not necessarily something you should rely on or trust that they will do. Thank you to Bleeping Computer, Dark Reading, Security Weekly, and Bitdefender for information on this data breach and the implications. And of course, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime. This week's episode was pretty short, but I'm also working on writing and recording some other episodes in the future, so definitely stay tuned for those history episodes. And until next time, stay secure.